Hey, Closet Busters, come on and gather around. It's time once again to kick down those closet doors of life. We're here to escape our BS, explore our fears, and elevate our self-expression. I'm your host, Rick Clemens, bold move expert and coming out coach, and I'm going to take you to the party, the pulpit, the wake, and back to the party of living your life uncloseted. So come on, grab hold of yourself and get ready to step out, step up, and step into living your truth as we explore more stories, tips, and tricks for living your life uncloseted. Now let's get to the show. Hey, Life Uncloseted family. It is time once again for you to come out of those freaking closets of your life. I know I'm sounding a little sassy today, but I promise I'm going to be kinder as we step into this podcast because I want each of you to imagine making the bold move of practicing radical kindness. In fact, it's one of those things where if you could just see yourself and everybody else doing that sort of thing, what the hell different would our world look like? I mean, we'd be so beyond the bullshit. And, here's the thing. When you practice kindness, even if it's not radical kindness, everything is better. So why don't we do this? Why do we make all this crap up that, oh, you're doing this to me and I'm doing this to you? And yes, sometimes just because we're human, we're going to go down this path. But I believe, and so does my guest, that if we can practice radical kindness and we can step into some spaces where we put kindness in play that we wouldn't normally do it, everything is better. And I met this guy through my speaking group, and he's already a rock star, I can tell. I've been working with him a little bit, coaching him and doing some stuff. I thought, I want to have this guy on because he is so not, at least what I know so far, not the kind of attorney you would think. And we'll get into that because it's like, wow, he's an attorney. And of course, immediately everybody's going to go, oh, great. Please stick with this one. You're going to want to stay tuned in. You're going to want to figure out what Rocco Cozza has to say about being kind and doing kindness in the right way. So enough of my flapping my jaw. It's time for Rocco, and he's just coming off a great speaking gig. So he's all pumped up. He's driven through the snow to be here with us on Life Uncloseted. Welcome, my new friend, Rocco Cozza. Glad to have you here, man.
Thank you so much for having me. Truly appreciate it.
And I'm probably screwing up your last name. Is it Cozza or Cozza?
Cozza. That's okay. Everybody says Cozza.
I knew it. But, okay, so be kind to me because I screwed up your name. But hey,
no worries.
A perfect way to segue into that. So yeah, we met through Grant Baldwin's The Speaker Lab. I've done a little bit of coaching with you, but then in that conversation, it was like, oh my gosh, there's something here. And I'd like you to just kind of take us into that, man, because it was like, really? You see this whole kindness thing, and I'm just curious. For you, there's obviously something that's driving you in your life to really do this. So walk us into why this whole kindness thing has become like, well, kind of your brand. It's kind of starting to be what you talk about and what you do.
Yeah, so it started really. So I've been kind my whole life. I had a great upbringing from an amazing mother and grandmother that really instilled that value in me as a young kid. And that's just how I've approached life. And you talk about vulnerability, being a lawyer, that's something that you don't hear together, kindness and the law. But again, I've always been one to just buck the norms and say, this is how I'm going to approach the practice of law. So when I started into law, that's how I approached it. But then this whole brand came about really about a little over a year ago. I was speaking to some high school kids. It was high school and middle school, and it was about entrepreneurship, leadership, and just my career journey. And at the end, one of the young men asked, what's the one thing that you think matters most in business? And I said, kindness, very matter of fact. Everyone in that room looked dumbfounded. Like the first time anyone's ever said to them, that gets you far in life. And to me, that's as a father of three, that's a problem.
Of course.
And that's why it's just, it's become my passion to really spread that message, because I've used it in my career. I've used it in the legal profession. I've used it in the business world. It's been my biggest strength.
And, it's interesting when we tap into these things that are so contrarian, so to speak, to what people think, then people don't know what to do with it. They're like, seriously, this is what you're doing? And I remember the very first time, one of the books I read around coaching, and I believe it's called The Prosperous Coach. And, at first I was kind of like, because I'm always kind of a cynic. Not that my listeners don't know that already. But I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, really, the prosperous coach I'm sure it's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And then somebody else told me, you really should read this. And then somebody else said, you know what? Stop being a cynic, Rick, read this book. And I dove into it and I thought, this is so contrarian to what everybody tells coaches to do, because right out the gate, they kind of like, so if you're going to have a discovery session with the client, you're going to talk to them. Are you really going to pull this bullshit 15-minute discovery session? How badly do you want the client? If you really want them to be your client, you want them to pay what you want them to pay, you might as well be ready to like really be invested with them from the get-go. Mm-hmm. And I've always kind of felt that way myself. It's like, I never have taken really kindly to this like 15-minute discovery session, even though I confess that's what I have on my website. Right. It's more of, if it goes 30 minutes, we'll go. If it goes an hour, we'll go, because I want people to get it that, hey, if I'm your coach, I'm your coach and I'll be there. Now, if you need me 24/7, no, I'll probably be, telling you, you probably need to go to a mental hospital because I can't do that for you. But I think this is where you're kind of in that same space. It's like, let's really do what we need to do here and see what the results are that we get, because we gave a little more than the average Joe.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to put it. It transitions perfectly to what I do as a lawyer. When people call me and ask, hey, I have this problem, I'd like to meet with you. What do you charge for a consultation? And when I say nothing, let's just grab a cup of coffee, people are floored because they're not used to hearing that. But I'll go give that 15, 20, half hour. Sometimes it lasts 2-3 hours if it has to, because I'm trying to help people. And even if I can't help them myself, I'll point them in the right direction, because that's just how I've always lived. And I've never been one to say, I am better than someone, you need to charge me. And it just worked out for me. Right. Every amazing thing that's happened in my life, business-wise, has come from those moments of just giving my time.
And it's kind of interesting because that's kind of why we're on this podcast right now. You and I had this conversation. I'm like, wow, that would be really cool. I have this podcast. I sent you this, I sent it after the fact. I'm like, it'd be really good. And it's not because I'm saying, oh, look, Rick practiced kindness. It was, no, I really connected with this guy. And I think his message would be really good for people. So, hey, I want to see him thrive. By him thriving, I thrive. And sometimes this is the biggest freaking thing missing in the world in general, but especially in business. It's like, absolutely. Oh no, we become protective and we can't. No, it's give more and you will get more. At least that's my perspective.
I couldn't agree more. And there's been, that the talk I did this weekend, I talked a lot, and it was about kindness in business. And I referenced quite a few studies I looked at that actually show that kindness and compassion in a business increases the bottom line. And people need to understand how powerful it is. When a leader is fair, kind, and compassionate, it can change the entire dynamic of a company.
Yep. There's something unfolding in my world right now where I have a client that I'm doing some work with in a couple of days, and we've been working towards this. And this is not like your normal walk into, the typical hotel meeting room. We're going to do this work. No. This is where I am taking these guys out on a hike. Well, guys and gals, we're going on a hike. We're going up into the hills. We're going to some really cool places, and we're going to do this team building thing. So everything's moving along, I'm feeling really good. I'm like, yeah, this is right on. And then the client throws me the wrench. Oh, one of our team members just had foot surgery a few weeks ago, and they're going to be in a boot. Is there any way to get them up to the trailhead? And of course, my first response was, fuck, what am I going to do here? And then I'm like, wait, step back. Think about this. What's the best thing I can do? Which plays into the kindness thing. Like I could have done like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Not really my problem because you guys knew this was the plan. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, they didn't really know this was up either until they sent the notice out to everybody that, hey, here's what's planned. And so then this person, of course, came forward. And so kind of the serendipity of knowing we were coming to this podcast, and then simultaneously I had an experience with Byron Katie, who she talks about your thoughts and your reactions and how you would show up differently if you didn't have that thought. I immediately replied to the client. I said, that really sucks. I'd really like to try to come up with a solution, but I don't have anything for you right now. So give me some time to think through this. and see what I could come up with.
Mhm.
And the message I got back from the client was, thank you so much for going the extra mile.
That's awesome.
Because he kind of knew there wasn't anything I could do. I mean, I'm still going to try to do my best. And of course, now there's a couple of things that have happened that hopefully will accommodate this whole scenario and actually make the whole event better. But I think this is what's missing so often, not only in business, but in our lives.
Absolutely.
We immediately go for the defense. I'm right. You're wrong. Whatever. And then we forget, wait, we're just humans. We're all on this planet having this like lovely, sometimes not so lovely human experience.
Yeah.
What happened if we just were nice about something instead of
Absolutely.
immediately going to the defense?
Yeah, I think people fear that vulnerability, that being kind, they feel, again, it's society created this impression in all of our heads that kindness equals weakness.
Yes.
And I think people have that, they look at that as, if I act kind or too nice, I'm going to be seen as vulnerable. Therefore, I will lose my station in life. Well, to me, you're right. Let's just all be kind. Look, you have to understand you're being taken advantage of. I get that.
Right.
But, if you live a life, I believe, leading with kindness, opportunities will open up. The world just opens up, and the universe has this tendency to bring good into your life. I truly believe that.
And the thing that I find so interesting, and listeners, you can't see this guy, big, handsome, muscular guy here that I'm talking to, but you would go, really? This one's going to talk to me about kindness? He looks like he should be like possibly, in the, cage, cage fighting with some guys, that kind of big guy, But what I love is you and I have the same thing. It's like I walk out on the stage, you walk out on stage. Here we are, these big guys, and then suddenly so. In my case, of course, I'm going to do the snap and go, okay, girl, so here's the thing, They're like, oh, my God, he just went the gay route. Well, not every time, but, it's like, hey, yeah, I can walk out here and I can do this, but people are least expecting these things. And I think this is absolutely the beauty of showing up in kindness.
Absolutely.
Because it's so unexpected so much of the time these days.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, again, and I pride myself on the fact that when most people meet me, they don't guess I'm a lawyer. If they just talk to me and meet me face to face, the last profession they guess that I'm in is a lawyer. I said, that's great, because
that is a great thing.
Yeah. It's just, it's amazing. And it's, and you're right. If people look at me and don't see me, I can kind of look, I guess, not intimidating, but just, very much the stereotypical beard, bigger guy, Italian, that they don't think that, and then they find out I'm a lawyer, they automatically assume these certain things. And when they meet me or talk to me, it flips the script, because I just believe wholeheartedly in kindness.
So what's been the biggest thing for you in your own business? And you're not only a lawyer, you're an author, you do some coursework and stuff for people as well. What has been one of the biggest things you've seen by practicing this kindness that it's done for you in your business?
Well, in the recent years, I could tell you. So, about a year and a half ago, a business partner at the time of mine said, "Hey, I know this guy. I think you could help him. He just may need some guidance. I think you should meet him." I said, "Okay." Well, snowing like crazy in Pittsburgh. I had this meeting scheduled with this guy, had no idea who he was, had no expectation of anything. Drove into downtown Pittsburgh from the outskirts of town through the snow, spent 3 hours with this guy. That's turned into me working with professional athletes, him and I becoming business partners and starting this whole olive oil and wine company. Just because I was willing to take that. I had no idea who he was, no idea what he needed. I just said, hey, if you think I can help him, I'm willing to do that. I did it. We hit it off. He becomes one of my good friends, introduces me to these different professional athletes that I now work with. It's just but most lawyers don't do that. Taking 3-4 hours out of your day to just go meet a random stranger that you have no idea for what purpose. That's just one example.
Yeah, exactly. And what I see from that, Rocco, as you're talking about this, is there's this interesting balance you've figured out that it's not like, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get this. That's not what I'm hearing. It's, okay, if I do this, let's see, if I can help. If I can't, that's okay too. And
Exactly.
I kind of operate in the same way, because people say, oh, you're a coach. Can you do this or help with this or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't make any promises, because the relationship is the relationship. Maybe I'm a good
Yeah.
fit. Maybe I'm not, But if I can help somebody, even if all I can do is help somebody find another coach that's better suited for them,
Exactly.
I do believe in karma. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where I believe it'll come back. And I may not realize it comes back, however it does. But hey, if I did something and I feel good and it helps that person, cool. Let's go do that,
Yeah.
And I often wonder if that was the real premise of business, and for sure in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
how different things would be.
Oh, I think
I mean, I didn't have any expectation out of meeting you
mm-hmm.
on the coaching call that I did for the speaker lab stuff.
Right.
And then suddenly, wow, I really think this guy has something. Oh, I'd like to share him with the world. I don't know what's going to come from it, but what I do know is somebody somewhere is going to listen to this,
Mm-hmm.
and they either may get triggered to go be kinder, or they may get triggered and piss them off because, oh yeah, well, that's okay. Then maybe that's what they're supposed to have happen right now, is
Right.
because they need to be triggered in that way. But then there's somebody, I'm sure, that's going to go, yeah, I wonder, maybe I need to do this in my own business. Maybe I need to step forward.
Yep.
And then things will begin to happen. So
yeah, it's a ripple effect. I truly believe that. If I always tell myself, if whatever I do, content I put out, things I'm doing, I said, if I can help one person, I know that effect will multiply.
Absolutely.
And that's just the way it works.
When it multiplies, what I think is so beautiful, it's the 10 people who tell 10 people who tell 10 people who tell. That is truly what I believe happens. I don't know. I don't know that I'll see it actually happen, but I don't really care. I don't know until it happens. And then out of the blue, somebody will send me a message. And I got one this past week going, I just want you to know, I'm so glad I found your podcast. I'm so glad I found your book. And one of my friends who had a friend who knew it, and I'm like, by the time they were all done, I was like, yeah, I'm 6 degrees away from Kevin Bacon here. Cool. It's happening. This shit really does happen, Yeah. But it wasn't because I'm like, okay, now I'm doing this post and this is going to drive this. And I hope that I never lose that. I mean, I'm hoping, if I'm going to lose that, then, please take my memory or something away, because I don't want to be that person who's doing this stuff for all the wrong reasons at this point.
Right.
So as you begin to see, wow, this stuff really works, and you started doing other stuff, is that what kind of prompted you into, hey, I want to write a book and I want to do these courses? How did that all start to come about, that this became part of your business too? Or are we going to okay, now we're going to completely segue away from something?
No,
or is it all part of it?
It all really relates, and that's it's interesting you say that, because when I talk to people about the different things I do, they always ask me, like, well, how do you keep all this straight? And when I look at it, it all fits together as one part of a puzzle. Nothing I do is really out of the ordinary. I'm a lawyer, coach, speaker, investor, entrepreneur, author, but that's all centered around the same stuff. So the book I wrote, it's called The Alpha Way: 5 Keys to Unlocking Your Greatness and Living Your Best Life. It's really a book. I look at it as a guidebook for people looking for just some inspiration and just a roadmap of how to live a better life. It's not, it's not one of those books that's super technical. And then the reason I wrote the book is I'm a huge personal development fan. I've been reading for years, a book or two a week. And I always said there was these great books written by these extremely successful people of like, hey, look, I used to sleep on my sister's couch. Now I'm a multi-gazillionaire. Here's how I did it. That's great. There was nothing written from the middle.
Yeah.
And that's the way I approached the book. I said, I'm a lot farther along in life than I thought I would be at this point, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I think I got some stuff that I can help other people that are a little bit behind me come to where I am. And that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
And it's really written for that group of people.
And this is what's so interesting. And I know most authors kind of get this. I think a lot of us do. That the book gets written for you. You do it for you.
Right.
Because you need to dump this shit out of your head. Okay. Right. I'm not saying it's shit. I wrote a book too, and I had to dump that crap out of my head so I could really see it. And then it's actually for whoever it reaches.
Yeah, exactly.
Good, bad, or indifferent. And somebody
Yeah.
said, when I said that one time on another podcast or somewhere on stage, and it came time for Q&A, well, what about the person who doesn't like your book? I said, great.
Yeah.
It reached that person because it triggered something in them that didn't work for them, and it made me see something that maybe I need to see, that I need to observe. So the next time I do that book or write another book, it's like, oh, I need to look at this from this angle. It's meant to do what it's meant to do. And I just know, because I get there. I get there myself all the time. We can go get hung up on this stuff so easily. It's like, but what the hell does it matter? It got shown to you. It got shown to them. The same way, if you go do something really kind and some lawyer friends of yours go, you're insane, man. I would never give away that much time. Well, that's you. Great.
Exactly.
You stay in that lane because that lane seems to be serving you well. I'm going to stay in my lane over here because this lane is really serving me well.
Yes.
I don't know that we have enough compassion and kindness in this day and age to give people the permission to do that.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a lost art. Kindness is truly a lost art.
Now, I agree, and I can already hear the rumblings out there in podcast land.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about if you don't agree with what's going on in the country and the politics? Okay. Yes and no, and yes and no. I'm not going to defend that argument. There's ways to be kind in that arena, and there's ways to stand up for what you believe in. But I also think when you do take the stands, there's a way to take a stand and be kind about it.
Exactly.
And then there's a way to do the other bullshit that we see. So, and I think for most people, this is that dilemma. So when you see that dilemma coming up, even for you yourself, because, I would really love to say that Rocco is perfect. He is, the Italian Jesus Christ that's going to bless the world, all that good stuff. But but when you see that showing up for you, what helps you? Because I know I have some things I do, but what helps you? Like, okay, I'm just going to get back in my head. I'm going to get back in that space of practice kindness, practice kindness, practice kindness. But how do you get yourself back when you really want to go, yeah, screw you. I'm done.
Well, it's a good question. And I've always tried to approach, the debate, the argument, right? I'm a lawyer. That's what we do for a living. Right. So it's been ingrained. So I always say that the way I practice kindness in that arena is if you and I are debating a point or arguing or bickering like the politicians do, I don't want to try and force my opinion on you. All I'm trying to get you to do is understand my point of view. You don't have to agree with it. And if you can just take the time to understand it, I'm okay with that. And I will take the time to understand yours. I don't have to agree with it. Now, yes, there are times where I get pissed off and I just think someone's outlook is just so illogical. Yeah. But then I also have to say, well, look, not everybody thinks like me. And it's hard sometimes. You got to be very self-aware and bring yourself back down. And, it's a debate I have with myself a lot of the time because it can be hard. But I just always try and remember that, look, my job is to not force my opinion or my viewpoints on someone else. We all have differing views. All I care is that you can understand where I'm coming from and understand the argument I'm making.
Right. It's such a more powerful position.
Yeah, it is.
And, it really is. It's the hardest one to learn. It's like, okay, it is. Because as soon as I say, okay, I just want you to understand, then that means I have to be willing to open the door to understand them too.
Exactly.
Because as soon as I ask it of you, I better be willing to do it myself.
Absolutely.
And it isn't easy. It isn't easy. And I think when I think about all the people coming out of different kinds of closets, it doesn't matter what this closet is or that bold thing you're trying to do. Someone somewhere is not going to understand what you're doing.
Sure.
And they're going to tell you that. And then everything is going to start right there. But if you can come from the space of, I understand why I'm doing this, and I can defend why I'm doing this from I want you to just understand me. I don't need you to embrace it. I don't need you to get on the gay bandwagon and come over to my side of the fence. I don't need any of that. What I need is you just to understand. Then it's much easier to have a conversation with most logical people. Not talking about the ones that won't be logical.
Right.
And even then, even when I'm with someone who won't be logical, my favorite thing to say, and I'd love to see what you say too, is, you know what? It's clear to me we can't understand each other. I'm really trying, but we can't.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, and I'd rather not do this with you. And I respect you enough to say I'm not going to do this with you.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of times I've almost got the shit beat out of me for saying
Right.
something like that. But oh well, you know,
Yeah.
it's just what it is. But it is one of those interesting spaces. So, you know, when
Yeah.
you get it back in those corners, I'm curious, how do you like step through it?
So taking your example, so that's one way I would do it. The other way I've done it in the past, which seems to work, I said, okay, well, let me try and understand your point. Explain it to me like I'm a 10-year-old child. Explain your position and explain the logic behind it. Because what I find is when people get very passionate about an argument, be it politics or some other, highly charged issue, 7 out of 10 times, they don't understand the logic behind why they feel that way or why they have that position. They've just either jumped on a bandwagon or have just always felt they should feel that way. But when you really break it down to the essence of the logic, that's where people sometimes start to question themselves. If you just say, okay, I just want to understand, treat me like I'm a 10-year-old child, like I'm my son or my daughter, and explain to me your position in terms I can understand. If they can do that, then okay, great, you have your position. Most of the time they can't because they don't really understand their position well enough. That's what I find.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Of course, then that also works when you're talking to the person who's actually acting like a 10-year-old. You can say, okay, you're acting like a 10-year-old, so can you now explain it to me like the 10-year-old you're acting like? And maybe we get somewhere, But
exactly.
It is a very interesting dynamic. And one of the things that I have found that kind of gets me in that space is to actually ask the question of myself. And I'm not going to reveal too much because this is like coaching technique stuff, and I don't like to go too deep on a podcast with that. But to ask myself, how true is that? Simple question. How true is that?
Yeah. Okay.
Because is it true that they're really trying to be an asshole? Is it true they really can't understand? Is it true? Because as soon as I do that with myself, I immediately start to calm down. Now, sometimes I won't because it's like, yes, they really are. But I've always loved that question from the moment I got taught how to use it in coaching.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll use one technique of it. We have these little truths and we have these big truths.
Yeah.
The big truths are, we need air, we need water, we need food. We kind of need shelter to survive. But if you think about the bare minimum truths, we need air, water, food to survive as humans. The truth is the sun is going to come up and the moon is going to come up. These are like, here's these truths. When you start to really think about the absolute truths, there's not a hell of a lot of them in our world. There's very few.
Right.
And everything else we try to make a truth.
Yeah.
And whatever we're trying to make a truth, a lot of times isn't at all. Because it can be there's another way, or there's another answer, or there's another perspective. But we get so bogged down in the truths that we lose sight of how to be kind.
You're 100% right. There's varying degrees of perspectives.
You'll see, but that's a truth. There's a truth. Rick is always right. So,
right. Well, yeah, that's
and Rocco is very close behind in that truth arena too.
Well, you can ask my wife.
Coach him a little bit more on this speaking stuff, and then he'll be right there with you. But so I'm curious when you have done this, and this is where I think it's so fascinating. The most fascinating place to do this is with our children.
Oh yeah,
because to me, our children, and we all know children are the best teachers, but they really are because. Man, as I watched my children grow through all their different stages and as they continue to, it shows me each time how much they knew about some of this stuff that we now take for granted. And now where they are, that they're even starting to take stuff for granted unless there's a beautiful reminder. So in your own kids, watching them come through these stages of, they're going to have their battles, they're going to have their friendships and all this stuff. It's got to be interesting to try to remind them what kindness is all about without saying, I'm the dad and this is why, Well,
it's really interesting because I have 3 kids, 17-year-old son, 9-year-old daughter, and a 5-year-old daughter. So all different stages of life. And with my son, that was the one I worried about the most, because he's not with my current wife, so I don't see him all the time. He's not with me all the time. And I always wondered, kids watch, but you always say, am I being the example? Am I showing him kindness?
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned over the years, and all of his friends, because kids can just be, assholes, for lack of a better term sometimes. And he's my son, but every single one of his friends' parents have always made it a point to say to me and to say to his mother that your son is the most kind and well-mannered kid we've ever met. And that means a lot to me. The fact that he, without telling him, you try and instill values and you tell them certain things, but he watches. And the other interesting story I'll give you is that when he was about 14 or 15, I was picking him up, and I picked him up from an ice cream shop. He was with some friends that were girls. He got in the car and I just made the joke. I said, "Oh, did you pay for all the girls?" And without missing a beat, he looked at me and he says, "Yes," because that's what a man does. It's like, and I never told him that, but he's always watched me. Yeah. So it's just interesting how your kids watch. I think a lot of parents need to understand it's not what we say, it's what we do that matters.
Right.
And so I know that I have to live kindly. I can tell my kids till I'm blue in the face, be kind, be kind, be kind. But if they don't see me being kind, I'm going to be a fraud to them, and they're not going to live that way.
Right. So I know we're kind of in an interesting touchy-feely space here, and because there's so much around this, and before we wrap it up, I wanted to make sure we touch on this.
Yeah.
There's so much around this, quote, toxic masculinity stuff right now, which I agree. There are certain men who can be toxic. There are certain men who can, have toxic behaviors. And there's guys, sometimes we can do something toxic. But when we get to that space, I'm like, anybody who's a human can do something toxic.
Absolutely.
But here we are talking about kindness, which I'm going to stereotype right now, which really is so not a guy trait, so to speak. We're supposed to be, the big guys that do the stuff, which I find is complete bullshit anyway.
Yeah.
But what do you say to a guy who's like, yeah, I'd really like to do this, but it's an assault on my manhood? What would you say to him?
I would simply ask the question, why do you feel that way? Because to me, what's the logic behind it? How are you defining your manhood? Because I look at it, I feel that I'm a pretty manly guy, but I'm still one of the most kind people you ever meet. But I don't let the fact that I'm kind be a shot at my manhood. I look at it as that's what a man is. I look back to, the years of long ago where men were, obviously there's different viewpoints. I believe in being a gentleman. I believe in chivalry. I believe treating people with respect, dignity, and kindness. And that, I think that's what makes a man.
Yep. And I think this is one of the key critical pieces to me in this work I do with men, and in society, that we're putting way too many stereotypes on what X should be. Yeah. What men should be, what women should be, what Democrats should be, what Republicans should be, what gay should be, what straight should be, what, all these different things, instead of saying, oh, that's who you are. Let me understand that. Can I be supportive in that? Can I help you through that? Because when we give room for someone to be themselves, and if that's a guy like yourself who really practices kindness, wants to be kind, wants to see others be kind, when that's given room to grow and to be present, to me, it's just like watering a plant. It's just going to continue to grow and be even more present. But the moment we shut anyone down, and I'm going to go back to especially guys to say, you can't be vulnerable, you can't be kind, you can't be compassionate, you can't be is it really any fucking wonder that we have toxic masculinity?
Yeah, you're right.
Because you're being told from a very young age, you can't do this, you can't be that, you can't say, up, man up, blah, 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 And some of my best male friends are the ones who are the kindest guys in the world and don't actually do much of what the masculine stereotypes are,
Mm-hmm.
but they sure are great looking, masculine looking guys. And then people find out, what do you mean you don't go to sports? Well, I just don't.
Yeah, right.
That's who I am, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't mean I don't like him. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't care, but just not my thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And we don't give room for people to be what they are. And then we want to go slap another label on and saying, well, look at how toxic you are.
Yep.
It's so fascinating.
Well, I think people just put on these masks. We put on these masks, and it's just what society tells us. This is the mask you wear, and underneath, we all have vulnerabilities. We all have these fears and these self-doubts, and we need to. And it took me years to figure that out. Probably my late 20s, early 30s. I just stopped caring about what other people thought and just started living my authentic self, and that changes everything. And it's just you have to step out of that fear.
I love that this is where we're coming to at the end of this thing, because it's so interesting to ask yourself those questions. Who would I be if I quit caring what other people thought?
Exactly.
Who would I be if I continued practicing kindness and didn't care what somebody would think about that?
Yep.
Who would I be if I just kept doing my podcast the way I do and I drop an F-bomb every so often?
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I will get emails going, are you okay, Rick? Why? Well, you didn't say fuck this episode. Oh, sorry. Let me put that in the script next time. Damn it. Okay. You know, it's just part of who I am. And, you know, I know where to filter it and not filter it. I mean, you know, I wouldn't go to church to begin with, but, you know, I wouldn't go stand in church and say that. Well, I might if I was really pissed off about something, but I would be very respectful. You know, I would spell it. Maybe I wouldn't actually say it, you know, but, you know, it's one of those interesting things. And I think this is what you beautifully brought to this is be who you are, do what you do, because that's the essence of what you've been brought to the planet to do.
Absolutely.
So all right. Well, we could talk for hours, but, you know, it's later where you are, and you're probably ready for some good Italian wine, or if you already haven't had any, I can tell you.
Actually, I'm heading to the gym. That's where I'm headed.
All right. Well, you're a better man than I, because I'm not yet, but I will. Like, I think in 2020, I'm heading to the gym. I don't know.
That makes sense. That's all right.
Yeah. No, I will. I'll get there tomorrow. And by Thursday, I think I'll be there because I won't have so much on my plate. But brother, I love having you on. His book is, tell us the name of the book again, please.
The Alpha Way, 5 Keys to Unlocking Your Greatness and Living Your Best Life. And
you also have a podcast, right?
I do. Yeah. It's called It's Work, the ups and downs and in-betweens of the road to success.
That man is definitely a personal development junkie. I love it, love it, love it. And everything will be available for you to see on the show notes here and everywhere. And I just want to say, man, I'm so glad the universe brought us together because it was meant to be. And we're not going to talk about the next little thing we're going to do because nobody knows about it yet, but there'll be another opportunity coming up that you will get to interact with this great guy again. And now that I've piqued your interest, you guys are going to have to really listen to the podcast for the next few weeks. So anyway, that's it, everybody. Have a great week. Go out there, uncloset yourself, live your bold life, and live life on your terms. Take care. All right, there you have it. Another episode of Life Uncloseted has come to an end, but that's okay. We're going to be back in just a couple of days sharing more stories, tips, tricks, and wisdom for helping you live your life uncloseted. And you know what? You can share too. Just take a few moments if you like and if you believe in this podcast and share it with someone you know today. Share it from your phone, go share it on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you are. Maybe even give us a rating and review because you know what? It's all about the planet living their life uncloseted. I'm Rick Clemens, host of the show and the guy who helps you make those big, bold moves. And I hope you never stop stepping out, stepping up, and stepping in to living your life uncloseted. Catch you real soon. Take care, everyone.